In this video series, I'm going to introduce a range of exercises based around the concept of intentional movement. This is an idea that's drawn from traditional Chinese martial arts. It's the kind of thing we associate with particularly Tai Chi. In my case, most of the exercises that I'm going to show are drawn from the Chinese martial art of Yiquan, but it doesn't have to be martial art specific. It's a natural movement concept. These are the exercises that I use in my training, that I've used extensively, and the theory and method that I use to train these and to teach other people, and also to maintain fitness, health and well-being certainly into middle age. You can go and look at my other videos and see that I'm very active in sparring and fight training, and I can still move a bit. And a lot of my training has been based around this kind of intentional movement concept. It's a foundation concept, particularly within Yiquan. I know it seems very strange at first to think, well, how can slow movement help an athlete or anyone who wants to learn some kind of physical movement concept? And there's a lot of misunderstanding around this, with people thinking, well, you know, you see Tai Chi Chuan people in the park and you think, well, what do you think? Like, you know, you're going to have a fight and move slowly and that's going to be effective, and that seems laughable. But we don't think that way when we see, for example, you know, a boxer doing running or weightlifting. We don't say, well, running and weightlifting, what are you going to do in a fight? Lift a weight. You know, maybe you'll run away, but if you have to fight, well, you know. But we know, of course, that running, building strength are not the actual fight itself. They are foundation training exercises, and that's very much what intentional movement is. And we can think about it in multiple different ways. So I'm going to do two different introductions. I'm going to do this, which is the basic introduction, then a more advanced introduction for Chinese martial arts theories, because nothing in Chinese martial arts is ever just one-dimensional. Everything does multiple things and changes how it functions as your level improves. But one of the ways that's really useful for anyone, any kind of martial artist or anyone learning any kind of physical movement skill, is the idea of improving your talent. And this is one of the things that slow movement training does. And you can think about it like this. Usually when we want to learn a physical movement skill, we are shown something by someone else and then we copy it. And we do multiple repetitions of that thing that we've been shown. And little by little, with multiple repetitions, hopefully, tiny little increments at a time, we start to get better. And if you've got a good teacher, they'll be watching your movement, they'll be correcting it, or if you're quite engaged, you'll be thinking about your own movement, trying to change those repetitions, trying to think what was good, what was bad in it, step by step building skill. And along the way, particularly in martial arts, you're usually building your fitness, your strength, and your flexibility. And those attributes, those fundamental training attributes, training methods build attributes that then amplify the effect that you're getting from your repetitions. So if you're fitter, you can do more repetitions. If you're practicing a punch and you get stronger, you can put more power in the punch. And we understand this. Even a coach has their baseline training, that's experience, that lets them teach another person more effectively. But even within that milieu of someone practicing movements, a coach guiding them, some people do better than others. And we usually put that down to talent. Some people have got kind of natural talent, and that lets them improve faster, and it lets them execute techniques more efficiently or more beautifully. They have natural talent. But in Yiquan theory, it's not so clear cut, this idea of having natural talent. So Wang Xiangjai, the founder of modern Yiquan, talks about the idea that our bodies are socialized into being, they're repressed through physiological socialization. We're socialized into forgetting how to use our bodies. So what we're not trying, we usually think about martial arts as taking an ordinary person and giving them some kind of extraordinary skill. Whereas the way we think about it in Yiquan, the way we should think about it, is that you take people who've kind of been repressed by physical ideologies into only using like a kind of minimal amounts of the potential of their physical form, and we give them remedial physiotherapy to bring them back up to what actually is like a normal standard, would be a normal standard for a non-human animal living in the wild. Wang Xiangjai gives the example of swimming, that people lose the ability to swim and then they have to relearn it. So this idea that there's some kind of natural talent, it doesn't quite fit with this way of thinking. We don't believe in that. Of course, some people have certain ineffable qualities that you can't quite put your finger on, but everyone's talent, if you like, can be improved through training. And the first thing you've got to do is break away from that idea that talent is natural and that it's fixed. You can improve your talent, and one of the ways that we do that is through slow movement. If you think about someone trying to learn a physical skill, they see someone do it, their coach shows them, and they copy it. And then they do lots and lots of repetitions, and the process is so slow because the disconnect between the idea that we have in our mind, or the image that we're seeing, and our repetition of that image is so disconnected. Like if you think of the brain as like the software that makes the machine work, that software is so unfit for purpose that it can't reproduce what it's seeing. It can't reproduce the idea that you have in your mind. And perhaps more importantly, on a more advanced level, particularly for martial arts, it can't even feel in many cases that it's doing it differently. That's one of the important learning stages. In fact, when you start to be able to feel that you're doing something wrong, it can be quite downheartening because you think, oh God, that's wrong. But in fact, that's a really important advancement in your learning stage, where your ability to feel what your own body is doing has actually upgraded to a point where you can feel that you're doing it wrong. So that's training talent. That's talent in itself. And the reason why slow movement works to kind of build this link between your intention to move based around a particular idea of a movement, and your actual physical reproduction of that movement. The reason why slow movement works is it just gives your body remedial physiotherapy to rebuild that link. And we do it slow, and we say as slow as possible. In fact, in the traditional method, we start without moving at all. We start with just standing, what we call zhanzhuang. We don't need to worry about that for these exercises. But then through slow movement, you can think about it like a scanner that scans something, and the slower it scans, the more detail it can pick up from the image. It's exactly the same with slow movement, just rebuilding the interconnection between your intention and your body. And that's what these exercises are for, and I hope you enjoy them, and that's the basic introduction for why we do these. So I wanted to just add a little bit of a more advanced introduction for people who are interested in martial arts, and particularly Chinese martial arts. Now, we know that slow movement doesn't just work on this idea of increasing our proprioception, our interlink between mind and body. It does lots of other things besides. It creates a particular kind of physical movement, sense and quality, a springy, elastic way of moving. And the idea of that is that you don't always just, if someone's pushing you, for example, it might not be very useful just to completely tense. You want to be able to move as well as resist someone pushing against you. So it's not useful just to tense up. So we want to develop a different kind of physiological way of moving. And that's one of the things that slow movement training can help us build, that particular movement quality. And we also want to develop the ability to form structures. So the way the whole body is interconnected to bring force or use leverage or movement, using the whole body in an interconnected manner. And that's one of the things that slow movement helps us to do and helps us to learn. So I'm going to do some basic exercises, and I'm going to do some not so basic exercises that are for more advanced people.